Welcome to another episode of Visionaries in Progress on the Road. If you're new here, hello, my name is Lusterling. I am a multidisciplinary artist based in Dallas, Texas. I write, produce, record, mix, and master my own music. I am an abstract painter. I do mixed media work. I do a lot of different things. And I'm a visionary in progress. You can be anything. No, I want to remind you before we get into today's topic that whenever I say in progress, I don't mean that you as a person are in progress. I'm talking about what happens when you're a visionary living in the in-between of the ideas that you have and them coming into full fruition in reality. You are in progress. You are en route. And here on Visionaries in Progress, or VIP, I like to bring up topics, concepts, stories, tools, workshops, conversations, interviews with other visionaries, discussing things that I had to learn the hard way in my journey. They are reminders that I feel like we could all use, that we all need to hear sometimes. Some of them are original concepts. Some of them are my personal hot takes on unoriginal concepts. Today, I want to put a spin on something that I used to define as outlining your circles or defining your circles, which I do plan to do a full episode on at some point, but today that's not what I want to focus on. Today I want to focus on identifying your key players and why that's important on your visionary journey. Wherever you're at, wherever you're coming from, no matter like how far along you are in your experience in life as a visionary, whether you even see yourself as that yet or not, at some point you start to realize that you think differently than the people around you. You have a different way of having ideas. You experience creation in, I would say, a non-linear way. You probably have a life path that has brought experiences into your reality that you did not foresee or plan, that you had to learn how to navigate and pivot and explore. You have probably experienced identity shifts, maybe even an identity crisis at some point as you've pursued those creations and ideas that you've had, and you started to realize that there's something about me and there's something about the way my life works that is just different than people around me. When you get to this point, or if you're here, it's really important that you identify who the key players are in your world that either one, are not like you, but know enough about you to support you even in your differences, and or two, are similar to you, and even if they are doing something different, even if they have a different trajectory, maybe they're in a different field, maybe they're here to create something different, they relate to you on the level of the internal visionary that you are. I used to look at the relationships in my life through defining circles, my circles. I would literally draw this out in my journal at different phases of my life. And I think there are other people who talk about defining your circles. I don't really know if there was one specific person I could attribute this to. I just remember that at some point I started doing this. But I would get out my journal and I would make a series of circles that looks like a target, right? There's this one in the center, there's one a little slightly outside of that, there's a bigger one, and I would, for myself, get very clear on who belongs in each of those circles in my life. Here are what those circles represent. The inner circle, like the one at the center, is me at my core. That is my most vulnerable parts, my inside world, and there are not many people, if at all anyone, who gets access to my inner world. Very rarely do I share my actual thoughts with people and my true emotions and experiences, right? So in that center circle, I would probably just put me. That's my core, or God. Like, I only share that with me and God. Those are the only people that get to go there. But right outside of that core is like a next layer of a circle. And those are the people that I would let get closest to me. Those are the people that maybe they don't see me at my core. Maybe they can, to a degree, see aspects of me. But those are the people that I kept closest to me. Those are the people that I felt safe enough to share my ideas, to share my actual experiences, to share my hardship and my struggle and my heartache. And people that I felt like I could be vulnerable around and just completely transparent. That number, when I started doing this, I thought there were a lot of people who could handle me there. There are not a lot of people that can handle me there. And doing this process over and over again, I've started to learn, you know what, there's actually only like 2 people, maybe 3 max, that truly belong in that inner circle. So I would define that, right? Who are those people that I feel safe with in that way? And then there's like one layer outside of that. That layer outside of that are people who I see in my everyday life, I enjoy spending time with, but I don't share those deep inner parts of me with. I don't tell them the projects that I'm working on. I do not talk about the ideas that I have, the heartbreak that I'm going through. Every once in a while I might open up and say like, oh yeah, I'm going through this thing. But it's on the most surface level because they're on the farther outside. They're not closest to my core, they're on the outside. I would identify who are those people that I choose to stay in contact with, stay in some form of relationship for some reason, but they cannot come into that inner circle. And then anyone outside of that outer layer, so that final circle, anyone outside of that, these are people that I either have to stay in contact with for whatever reason, I have to engage with, but I have to uphold that mental barrier of these people are outside my circles that I've drawn for myself. They do not get to come on to the inside. They do not get to hear my thoughts, my inner world, my ideas, my projects. They are not people that I'm choosing to stay in relationship with. They are not people that I'm choosing to share aspects of my life with. I communicate with them on the outside as needed. They are outside the circles. I said I was going to do a whole other episode on this. Really, that's kind of the gist. I could talk more about it. But the reason why I did that is because as someone who is a very deep feeler, a deep thinker, and who for, the better part of my younger years would be considered an open book type person and could just share myself with anyone. Obviously, as I got older, I realized this is not what's best for me. Not all of these people are safe, and not everyone deserves this level of access to my life. Not everyone can handle me at my rawest state. So I'm not giving access anymore to anyone outside of this circle. And every once in a while, those circles would change. People would come in and out of your life. Maybe there was someone who started out on the outer side. There was someone that I developed a friendship with. I learned that I could trust them and move them closer and towards the center. And there were people in the center or towards the center that I, over time, learned you cannot go any further with me and move them out. And I still do that, I guess, in my mind as needed. But over time, it became less of an intentional practice that I would sit down and draw out in my journal, and it just became something that I would tune in to as I go, as I meet people, as people come into my life. Something that was helpful for me was even noticing how I met certain people. And I started playing with this concept of the way that I meet someone reveals to me where they belong in my life and in my circles and the role that they play. Where did I meet them? What role was I playing when I met them? If I was at an event for my art or for my music and they were in the crowd, that is our relationship, right? The way I meet someone, the role that I'm playing, the role that they're playing when we meet, as an indicator of their spot in my circles, right? So what's the difference then in defining your circles and identifying your key players, and why is that important in a visionary journey? So as I've already outlined or talked about, there were points in my life when it became apparent to me that I cannot share my inner world with everyone. And I don't know where you are with that. But I will say that when you're doing something different than other people have experienced, it's not always a safe space, and it's not always a safe container for you to be sharing anything that you're up to with those people until it reaches certain stages, especially when you're still trying to understand it for yourself. And until you're able to identify which people those are, you have to develop some kind of safety for yourself in trusting who you feel like even deserves to see those parts of you. Key players are people who show up for you time and time again, and they show you not only can they handle you and see the best in you and see you at your highest and recognize your gift, they are also someone who can hold that concept of you even when you're at your lowest. When you are at the lowest point in your life, when you're at the hardest places in your journey, when you are at the beginning stages of ideation or setting something in motion, where nothing makes sense yet, or where it's such a new idea or new concept that no one would even understand it, you need to surround yourself with key players who can hold the highest version of you in their mind and see you as that person while you are navigating the most challenging, most awkward, most confusing, lowest parts of your life. Because those people are going to serve as a beacon for you when you are in the dark, when you can't see yourself clearly because of the chaos. And I would love to say that, I'm someone who can always see myself so clearly. Yeah, to a degree. But when you're going through something and you get lost in your own sauce, when you get lost in the process, when you get in your head, when you have your own fears come up, you need to know, of those circles, right? Who are those key players who you can show up around in your raw mess in your like, man, I started this project and this, and they are not in any form going to echo back to you, oh my gosh, that's crazy, that's chaos, why did you do? No. Because someone who sees you in your highest light and in your highest version of who you are, someone who can like see you to your core and know your identity, know your purpose, understand what it is that you're doing in the world, they're not going to talk to you like that. They're going to talk to you differently. It's going to sound more like this. Wow, I can see how that's challenging for you. You are capable of navigating this. What is it exactly that is troubling you right now? What are you moving through? What is this bringing up in you? And how can I support that? How can I support that? Because I know what you're capable of. I see the light in you. I understand your gift. I see the potential in what you're creating. I see the levels of impact that this project is going to have. I understand that there's a weight to that for you. I understand that what you're experiencing is bringing up a lot of heaviness or a lot of fear for you. Yeah, because you're about to have a huge impact on people. I see that. How can I support you in that? Those are your key players. Those are your key players. Your key players are the ones who, even if they're not doing things the way you do it, they're willing to show up and help and even take a part in what you're doing. Not for their own benefit, but because they want to see you succeed. They are the people who, oh, you have a project? Oh, you need this? You don't want to hire someone? I can do this. Here, let me help you. I see that you're doing this on your own. Here's something I can do to help you. Nothing for them. And it's not that you wouldn't pour right back into those people. It's not that you wouldn't give to those people, or it's not that you wouldn't pay them. It's a different kind of energy and it's a different kind of intention when there's someone who truly supports you for who you are and wants to help, wants to show up, wants to offer ways that they can assist you without expecting anything in return. Those are your key players. I'm saying this because I was someone who for so long would be that person for everyone else in my life. I would show up for anyone because I feel like I can see that in them. I can see what they're talking about. I understand your ideas. I understand that it's confusing. And I want to help. I want my friends to succeed. Right? And I would do a lot for other people to help them achieve their dreams. Because I know what it's like to be pursuing something on my own. And I know what it's like to put in all the effort for myself. That's isolating. It's challenging. It's lonely. It's frustrating. It's a lot for one human to do alone, especially when you're on a budget, especially when you're limited on time. I know what that's like. So if I had a friend in my circles who was experiencing something, I would want to show up in that way for them. But I had to learn the hard way that it's great, fine, and wonderful for me to show up in that way for other people. But who is showing up in that way for me? And if I am constantly choosing to see people that way, choosing to show up in that way, to the point that I don't give that same level of effort and energy back to myself and back to my creations, or I'm prioritizing showing up for other people over doing what I need to do for myself, I'm sure you can see that creates an unhealthy pattern. I think, looking back, that's a form of, well, some form of people pleasing in like a creative work way. wanting to help other people, right? There's something wrong with service, but when you're called to, when you have something on you to create and do, it's really important to know who those people are who see you that way. So, as you move into this next phase of wherever you're at in your experience, in your journey, whatever projects you're working on, yes, define your circles and make sure those boundaries are solid and clear, but also identify who are those key players. Who are the key players in your life? Who's showing up for you in a way that demonstrates that they see you in your highest potential, even if they're doing something totally different. They value your perspective, they see your insight, they see your gift, and they choose to hold you in that light, regardless of what you're navigating, and they direct you back to your light over and over again. They remind you what you're capable of when you get lost in your own sauce. They redirect you back to your gift and back to your purpose and back to your why, because they understand those parts of you. They know that you're gonna do it. And they are key players in your journey of seeing it through. So who are those people for you? If it feels good, tell them, hey dude, you're one of my key players. You're here for the ride. You're here for the journey. And not everyone gets that kind of access. Not everyone gets a front row seat to what you're creating. Not everyone deserves to be there either. So, something to sit with. Let me know what this brings up for you. Who are your key players? And yeah, you've got this. See you next time.